Chapter 33. Roman Bandits. The next morning Franz woke first, and instantly rang the bell. The sound had not yet died away when Signor Pastrini himself entered. "Well, Excellency," said the landlord triumphantly, and without waiting for Franz to question him, "I feared yesterday, when I would not promise you anything, that you were too late. There is not a single carriage to be had, that is, for the last 3 days of the carnival." "Yes," returned Franz, "for the very 3 days it is most needed." "What is the matter?" said Albert, entering. "No carriage to be had?" "Just so," returned Franz, "you have guessed it." "Well, your eternal city is a nice sort of place." "That is to say, Excellency," replied Pastrini, who was desirous of keeping up the dignity of the capital of the Christian world in the eyes of his guest, "that there are no carriages to be had from Sunday to Tuesday evening, but from now till Sunday you can have 50 if you please." "Ah, that is something," said Albert. "Today is Thursday, and who knows what may arrive between this and Sunday?" "10 or 12,000 travelers will arrive," replied Franz, "which will make it still more difficult." "My friend," said Mercer, "let us enjoy the present without gloomy forebodings for the future." "At least we can have a window?" "Where?" "In the Corso." "Ah, a window!" exclaimed Signor Pastrini. "Utterly impossible. There was only one left on the 5th floor of the Doria Palace, and that has been let to a Russian prince for 20 sequins a day." The two young men looked at each other with an air of stupefaction. "Well," said Franz to Albert, "do you know what is the best thing we can do?" "It is to pass the carnival at Venice. There we are sure of obtaining gondolas if we cannot have carriages." "Ah, the devil, no!" cried Albert. "I came to Rome to see the carnival, and I will, though I see it on stilts." "Bravo! An excellent idea. We will disguise ourselves as monster pulcinellos or shepherds of the Landis, and we shall have complete success." "Do your Excellencies still wish for a carriage from now to Sunday morning?" "Parbleu!" said Albert, "do you think we are going to run about on foot in the streets of Rome, like lawyers' clerks?" "I hasten to comply with your Excellency's wishes, only," I tell you beforehand, the carriage will cost you 6 piastres a day. And, as I am not a millionaire, like the gentleman in the next apartments, said Franz, I warn you, that as I have been 4 times before at Rome, I know the prices of all the carriages. We will give you 12 piastres for today, tomorrow, and the day after, and then you will make a good profit. But, Excellency, said Pastrini, still striving to gain his point. Now go, returned Franz, or I shall go myself and bargain with your affeditor, who is mine also. He is an old friend of mine, who has plundered me pretty well already, and, in the hope of making more out of me, he will take a less price than the one I offer you. You will lose the preference, and that will be your fault. Do not give yourselves the trouble, Excellency, returned Signor Pastrini, with the smile peculiar to the Italian speculator when he confesses defeat. I will do all I can, and I hope you will be satisfied. And now we understand each other. When do you wish the carriage to be here? In an hour. In an hour it will be at the door. An hour after the vehicle was at the door, it was a hack conveyance which was elevated to the rank of a private carriage in honor of the occasion, but, in spite of its humble exterior, the young men would have thought themselves happy to have secured it for the last 3 days of the carnival. Excellency, cried the cicerone, seeing Franz approach the window, shall I bring the carriage nearer to the palace? Accustomed as Franz was to the Italian phraseology, his first impulse was to look round him, but these words were addressed to him. Franz was the Excellency, the vehicle was the carriage, and the Hotel de Londres was the palace. The genius for laudation characteristic of the race was in that phrase. Franz and Albert descended, the carriage approached the palace, their Excellencies stretched their legs along the seats, the cicerone sprang into the seat behind. Where do your Excellencies wish to go? Asked he. To St. Peter's first, and then to the Colosseum, returned Albert. But Albert did not know that it takes a day to see St. Peter's, and a month to study it. The day was passed at St. Peter's alone. Suddenly the daylight began to fade away. Franz took out his watch, it was 4:30. They returned to the hotel. At the door Franz ordered the coachman to be ready at 8. He wished to show Albert the Colosseum by moonlight, as he had shown him St. Peter's by daylight. When we show a friend a city one has already visited, we feel the same pride as when we point out a woman whose lover we have been. He was to leave the city by the Porta del Popolo, skirt the outer wall, and re-enter by the Porta San Giovanni. Thus they would behold the Colosseum without finding their impressions dulled by first looking on the Capitol, the Forum, the Arch of Septimus Severus, the Temple of Antoninus and Faustina, and the Via Sacra. They sat down to dinner. Signor Pastrini had promised them a banquet. He gave them a tolerable repast. At the end of the dinner he entered in person. Franz thought that he came to hear his dinner praised, and began accordingly, but at the first words he was interrupted. "Excellency," said Pastrini, "I am delighted to have your approbation, but it was not for that I came." "Did you come to tell us you have procured a carriage?" asked Albert, lighting his cigar. "No, and your excellencies will do well not to think of that any longer. At Rome things can or cannot be done. When you are told anything cannot be done, there is an end of it." "It is much more convenient at Paris. When anything cannot be done, you pay double, and it is done directly." "That is what all the French say," returned Signor Pastrini, somewhat piqued. "For that reason, I do not understand why they travel." "But," said Albert, emitting a volume of smoke and balancing his chair on its hind legs, "only madmen, or blockheads like us, ever do travel. Men in their senses do not quit their hotel in the Rue du Helder, their walk on the Boulevard de Gand, and the Café de Paris." It is of course understood that Albert resided in the aforesaid street, appeared every day on the fashionable walk, and dined frequently at the only restaurant where you can really dine, that is, if you are on good terms with its frequenters. Signor Pastrini remained silent a short time. It was evident that he was musing over this answer, which did not seem very clear. "But," said Franz, in his turn interrupting his host's meditations, "you had some motive for coming here. May I beg to know what it was?"